Hello there everybody, it's Ryan Liberty, and in this video I will be answering the question, what is compassion fatigue? Oh.
Ooh, ah.
Alright, so we're going to get into what is compassion fatigue. I've got my notes as always, so you'll see me checking them out here. But compassion fatigue is something that happens in the helping professions. So you'll see it with like doctors, nurses, emergency workers, therapists, counselors, social workers, those kinds of occupations. And it's something that comes from working with people who have gone through trauma, through hearing their stories day in and day out. And you kind of pick up compassion fatigue from doing that activity. So compassion fatigue, this is what it looks like. It's basically just the symptoms that somebody who would be going through PTSD might go through, except PTSD is a long-term thing. Compassion fatigue doesn't have to be. And it's not all the symptoms. It's just like a lower level, basically, a lower intensity, but it's still enough to cause disruption in your life. And usually in the occupation that you're in as well. So these are the signs. You may minimize things that are going on around you, maybe minimize your own feelings, minimize, the signs that we're going to be talking about here. You may feel that you're hypervigilant, always kind of scanning your environment for threats. You may have trouble with complex issues, like just have a hard time thinking about things. You may start to avoid your clients because it's just too much to listen to all of this at once. Not that you're like a bad person or anything. It's just, before I continue here, what goes on is it's just you get so bogged down hearing all these traumatic stories, and nobody's life should be way over filled with traumatic stories. And you kind of start to lose perspective on the world sometimes. And it's just very hard on you. So I'll continue here with the signs of what we're talking about. You may start to have a hard time listening to people, again, because it's too much to listen to these kinds of things over and over again. You may start to feel a little bit hopeless about the world, irritable. All of this makes sense, right? When you listen to horrible stories all day, you're going to be a little bit irritable. You may feel cynical. You may have trouble sleeping, feel exhausted. You may start to be a little fearful of the world because you're hearing about all these terrible things that happen to people. You may start to feel a little bit of guilt, maybe that you can't help them more, and possibly some depersonalization. You kind of like dissociating and cutting off from the world a little bit. So compassion fatigue, unfortunately, makes it hard for you as a person in the helping professions to help people because your reaction to all of the traumatic things that you're listening about is to be slightly traumatized yourself, and you kind of you're not able to work at full capacity and to help the people who need your help the most. So when you find that you have these signs of compassion fatigue going on, you need to treat yourself first so that you can help treat others. So how do we do that? There's a couple of ways to stop compassion fatigue in its tracks. So one thing is, if you work in a company where this kind of thing may have be going on, is to just educate all the employees there, educate your team. This is what compassion fatigue is. These are the signs. This is what we're looking for. Just be aware that, if you're working hard, maybe working overtime. I know people in the helping professions like to put in a lot of work because it feels very caring. You may overstress yourself, overtax yourself listening to all these kinds of stories, and this may happen. So education is one way. You also can do self-assessments to just measure, like, am I fatigued right now? Do I have compassion fatigue? And one measure that is out there that people use is called the Professional Quality of Life measure. It has an abbreviation PRO-QOL, Quality of Life. So that's like I just did it recently because I was curious. It's not too many questions. You kind of quickly fill it out and you give yourself a score, and it gives you an idea of like if you're compassion fatigued or maybe you're heading there, so you can kind of assess like, all right, I need to take care of myself a little bit more here. So that's another way. Also, self-care obviously is going to help with compassion fatigue. So things like journaling, exercise, getting proper sleep, proper nutrition, taking appropriate vacations, maybe having your own therapist and talking things over with them. All of those could be good outlets and ways to make sure you're taking care of yourself and you're feeling good so that you can go ahead and treat the people that you're helping. And then finally, building resilience, because resilience is what works for preventing trauma in the first place. So even this compassion fatigue, which is also known as secondary trauma, secondary traumatization, because it's a secondary traumatization. You get traumatized, just not to the full extent of when somebody gets something like PTSD. So you could build resilience to counteract that, to combat against it. So resilience, I have a video on 10 ways that you can build resilience, so you may want to check that out. But things like having a support network around you, learning coping skills, those kinds of things will help to prevent the trauma from kind of getting in the first place. So that is compassion fatigue. If you're in a helping profession, if you're an EMT, doctor, maybe somebody, a police officer, anybody who sees things on a regular basis, hears traumatic stories, I want to know, what have you gone through? Have you ever experienced compassion fatigue? If you have, let me know down below, and tell me how has it showed up for you. Did you feel exhausted? Do you have a story to share? I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure everyone else would. So thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for learning about compassion fatigue today. And if you're in a helping profession, thank you for what you do. Hey, it's Ryan Liberty. If you like that video, please give it a thumbs up, share with a friend, and leave any questions or comments down below, because that would really help me out. If you're somebody who's gone through a traumatic event and you're feeling cut off from the people around you, I have a free course that will help with that, so please click to get it. And if you'd like to see the rest of my videos, please click subscribe. As always, I want to remind you that your life matters. Nobody can question your worth. However it is that you're feeling, whatever it is that you're going through, it's okay, and you are loved. Thanks again for watching.